They said, "Ed, what was some of the secret of your success?" And I said, yes. Sometimes it's as simple as that. There was a moment in my life where I hit a wall. One morning, I couldn't get off the floor. I was just grinding so hard because I was afraid of failing. We can ignore this problem, or we can find a way to help the construction workers, because they are 5 times more likely to die by suicide than they are by death on the site. And we have to do more.
What do you know now about leading people that you wish you knew when you first opened up shop? Hello and welcome back to the Human Side of Construction podcast, where we provide construction leaders the insights they need to improve the industry and the great people in it. Today I have a very special guest, Mr. Ed DeAngelis from EDA Contractors. He started his career as a paperboy in a Philly rowhome. He worked his way up through the trades and built a 400-person specialty contractor from the ground up. What makes him different isn't that company that he built, it's how he built it. He calls it humanity as a strategy. I call it exactly what the industry needs. Ed, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Angelo, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So I did a quick little intro. I mean, we skipped over a lot there. There's probably some details we can cover. So based on, what I've seen, you got into roofing because it was basically a friend's uncle's company. And the paperboy and the row home, none of that screams future CEO that teaches roofers how to meditate. So maybe take me back to the beginning. Like, how did you get from delivering papers to running a huge organization?
Angelo, the paperboy story, for anyone who's been a paperboy, was an important part of my life, in the sense that I didn't realize it at the time, but it gave me an entrepreneurial spirit where at a young age, I'm out there making sure I'm doing deliveries. So I had to do my operations. I had a bill I had to pay for. You get papers, but you had to pay for it. I had to go collect my receivables. I had customer service where if I didn't put them in the door and it rained or something happened. And then I made money, more money than my friends were making, because I was out there hustling and working hard. So I think it's an important part of a story, especially for young people, that the sooner you get to work and start to feel the value of working and what it can do for you, you'll learn some things along the way. You might do things wrong, but I think it's important for any young individual that they start their journey of working as early as possible to just feel it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of transferable skills and even little things, and you learn without even realizing that you're doing it. Like, I know, reflecting back to my first job, my family worked in the restaurant industry. My parents owned a restaurant. Being a Greek Canadian, I don't know, a lot of people got into that for whatever reason, love food or whatever. But, I started as a dishwasher. So I was cleaning people's dirty plates. I was scrubbing toilets. I was cleaning out grease traps, which, if you've ever done that, it's probably one of the most disgusting things you can do. But you learn a lot, right? The hard work and the impact you have on people and the responsibility. So it's a very important thing, I think, that's missing from a lot these days.
Yeah, and look, and I don't want to spend so much time on it, but I feel very strongly about the value of the self-worth it gave me to have my own money, even if it was only $10 or $20, because I was a waiter and I was more of a busboy, and I did those things too. And while school is important, and I think it's very important, I think we need to balance some independence, even at a young age of 12, 13, to start introducing them into this journey, because I think it gave me a good start. It really gave me a good foundation of what it took to. So some friends would work 1 day a week. I wanted to work 5 because I could make more money. And then you made those decisions, whether those choices, and no one was judging you. You were really judging yourself. So I like to start with that, because I think, as you know, especially any restaurants are the same. The family business and restaurant, you are there doing the bottom of the bottom of the bottom work. And I think that's a good attribute to learn, to get through, because that's really what really propelled me. I mean, I finished doing that. I went to school. I went to college. I graduated from college, and I went. My friends' uncles, I was working the summers, just being a driver, doing whatever, but they saw me working really hard. And I tell that story a lot, because I say, and you've heard this before, work to be the best no matter what you're doing, and someone will see you for the value you put into it, the effort you put into it. And I think the reason they saw me is they saw me there on Saturday. They saw me there early. They saw me there working. I didn't know they saw me, but at the end of the day, they did. And they said, hey, we really would like you. Yeah, I was finishing up college. We'd really like you to come in and join our organization. And I think and that's really where it started for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it does come back to hard work and ethic and accountability and responsibility. I just reread a book. I think I've read it a few times, Law of Success, Napoleon Hill. I don't know if you're into that type of stuff, but
I love reading. So I would love I'm going to write
there,
it down for
there,
sure.
there's a line in there you just reminded me of, and it said, I'm not going to do it any justice, so don't quote me on this. But it's the man who provides more value than what he receives in return for monetary will soon realize that he's worth more. So basically saying if you put in more effort than what you're getting paid in the current moment, that's going to come back to you in spades. It's that hard work and kind of laying the bricks down for the future.
Yeah, I think that's Angelo, I was speaking with someone the other day and we were sitting there and they said, hey, what was some of the secret of your success? And I'd say, simple. It's not that, I said yes. I said yes.
Mm-hmm.
They said, work Saturday? Yes. You want to work overtime? I said, yes. They said, go get that over there. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a simple lesson that when you present it, I think people around you start to appreciate that. And I know it's not like, oh my God, it was a genius idea. Sometimes it's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not make this more complicated. And when you are in a job, whatever job it is in the beginning, especially, this is your foundation of who are you going to be? Like what are you going to stand for? You're never going to be skilled enough yet, but your effort and what you put out is going to really tell the individuals around you who you are. And I was fortunate that was something that I was comfortable. As a matter of fact, I took it as a pride that I'm going to work harder than anybody else and I'm going to be there. I'm going to be reliable. And I think that's an important attribute that any person in this world can do. And I think that's a simple takeaway for me.
I think especially these days, like there's a lot of credentials out there. You went to college, I went to college, I got my professional engineer, this and that. You can take courses, you can read books, you can watch YouTube videos, but that doesn't define your character, right? Like your character is what
those grease traps is really that's your character.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to, so you started at your friend's.
I started at a friend's uncle's company. And then, I always thought I want to start my own thing. My dad had owned a mechanical construction company. I knew I couldn't work with him, not because we didn't like each other. It was just I wanted to kind of build my own path.
Mm-hmm.
So then in 1999, I, through a lot of thought and a lot of soul searching, I launched EDA in that time. And, I had 3 little kids and a wife, and, I had to get her buy-in on the risk that I was taking. But she had heard me speaking about how I wanted to do things on my own. It wasn't that the company I was working for was bad. They were a good company. It was just I wanted to build my own path.
Right. And so when you started, that was in 1999?
Yes.
Yeah.
1999.
So I read that your goal was to inject more professionalism into roofing and see if you could still make a profit.
That's so funny. No, you're good. You're reading well.
That's a pretty modest goal. So, at what point did you shift from thinking like, I want to be on my own, I want to make a little bit of money and have some freedom, to building a company that focuses on people and their experience and how they work in the industry?
Yeah, look, Angelo, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that in the beginning, that's what I thought. I thought, let me survive. I just want to get in this. I want to protect my family. I want to earn enough to be able to give us a good living. And we did that. And, the company grew and it was growing and it kept growing. But then there was a moment in my life, and it was probably 6 or 7 years into the journey, where I hit a wall. And, one morning I couldn't get off the floor. And I was just grinding so hard because I was so interested and I was afraid of failing.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 and a wife. And it just hit me that, you know what? I need to focus on the company and building the company, not building me as much, so I could release myself to be open. And then how do I create an environment for the people that are at EDA so I don't feel like the whole world is on top of me?
Hmm.
So, I say there was two reasons. I did it for perseverance, and I also did it to say, if this is what I got to do every 5 years or 10 years, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. I mean, I was successful, the company was successful. So then I just went on a journey of reading about companies, Fortune 500 companies like Zappos, Southwest Airlines, Container Store, Whole Foods, just learning like, oh, there's another way to do this. And I think I can do it. And in the construction industry, people weren't, I mean, it looked like I had 9 heads when I started on that journey.
Hmm. Yeah. So maybe let's dive into that a little bit more, that transition, because it sounds like it kind of spawned out of necessity, right? And a lot of people I talk to, usually you have that moment in your life or something you can look back to and say, yeah, that was the time that changed it. So how did that process work for you when you realized, like, okay, this is working, but I can't do this on my own? How did you shift from that mindset to being more, delegating responsibility? Because I think what a lot of leaders fear, and I've been in this boat myself, is as a leader, especially when you're head of a company, you're supposed to have the answers. People are looking to you. You're supposed to know everything, and you're the one who puts in the work and gets it done. So going from that mindset to basically acknowledging, like, hey, I can't do it all, and you're giving up a little bit of that control. How did that transition work?
For me, it was, as I said, I went on an introspective journey about myself and what I wanted and how I wanted my business to be seen. I had already met the goal, as you said early, that I wanted to put professionalism in the roofing industry, and I really just wanted to be successful. So I met that. So now I'm like, wait, that's it? And that's when I read Good to Great, and I went through the journey of learning about how my brain works and learning about how I can help create an environment where it could be an incubator for people to build the company with me, not me building the company, we building the company. And it took a while. I mean, look, I was afraid still to give up the control.
Hmm.
So, Angelo, you spoke to it. You're right. It is hard to bring it. And I'm still on that journey, just so you know, 27 years later.
Hmm.
Uh, but what I have seen, so what I did was I went out, I saw what I could do. I wanted to come up with value and what would we doing this for? What was the mission of EDA? And really it was, it turned out that the mission that I really wanted was to really make a difference in, I wanted to be the best at what we were doing, but also make a difference in the lives of the people that made contact with us. And I had a big goal, a big ass hairy goal to say, you know what? I think this construction company, as we evolve, can transform into different type of company that is people focused, people centric, but still delivering profits and success. We can do both of those things together. But I needed to learn about it, and reading really gave me a way to just kind of get in to see how other companies had done it. So, by getting that kind of data, it allowed me to free my mind up to think bigger.
Hmm.
I wanted to think, okay, how do we get into that? And that's where it took me to a whole new place. Now, the thing that's important is they people looked at me like I had 9 heads. They're all engineers that were working for me. They were all thinking we got to get to fix the widget. We got to keep getting better and I'm saying don't even talk about any of the widgets.
Yeah.
I want to talk about what our values are, who we're going to be, how we, what's some words that we're going to need. I mean, we're going to really dig down into seeing, what do we want to be known for? Who are we?
That's a interesting point because, I've said this before too. I've been doing construction 20 years and it's a very technical industry. Technically we're excellent. That's what a lot of the training is focused on. If you're in the field, you learn how to use safe work practices and use tools safely. If you're in the office, you learn as a, financials or how to generate an RFI. But what makes the world go around is how people interact with each other. In construction, the end product, right? The output is a building or a roof or cladding or an envelope or whatever. But the people are the process in getting there. So it's always boggled my mind why there isn't more conversations around, self-improvement and all this stuff. Everybody's focused on scope, schedule, and budget, and it's very performance based. So going back to the piece of trying to change that mindset with your people who are technically oriented, and it's not their fault. They're not bad people. It's just how they've been trained and taught. So how did you kind of crack that nut and get through to them and because essentially it's change management, right? So how did you manage that change?
So, we had a lot of meetings with me first, just kind of leading it. And I do think it's important that the CEO of any organization, when you go through a change management, is 100% invested. And, before we even brought in an outside consulting firm to come in to kind of help guide us, because I'm a construction person. That's not what I do. I just wanted them to feel and test me on, was I going to be committed to this? Was this a flavor of the month, or were you 100% committed? I was 100% committed. So we sat around for many, 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 many times, spending a lot of money, just really kind of speaking to the mindset of that and thinking of, what do we want to be and how do we get there? It wasn't until then we brought in, happens to be my aunt. It was my aunt who was a coach, who then took us on a journey where we were talking about our brains, the neuroscience of our brains. We were talking about breathing, emotional intelligence, and then taking that, and that was really difficult, but we were spending the time and money to keep educating our field staff and our office staff. And as you know, Angelo, the field staff are super talented, super technical, and sometimes we don't give enough credit how smart they are. And what we needed to do was introduce them to some things that they were really standoffish in the beginning, was about how do they understand how their brain works, their amygdala, and why they get triggered, and then giving them some tools to be able to cope with some of the stresses, as you know, on a construction site when there's danger all around, there's injury lurking, there's 50,000 pieces trying to come together at the same time, and it's a high stress environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing I've said before as well, is construction is just stressful. There's no way around it, right? You're not going to control the stress that comes out of working in the industry in terms of like the budget pressures and time constraints and 10 fires going on at the same time and everybody's screaming at you. So it's how you react to that, right? That's what you can control, is your response. So we're going to get a little bit more on into some mental health stuff in a second, but before we move on, I just want to touch on a piece, because you mentioned, there's what I'm guessing is a huge amount of resources that go into this, right? You've got coaching, you've got full-time, people and culture, leadership academies, all this stuff. For a specialty contractor, that's probably unique in the sense I've seen it at bigger type GCs. It's a serious investment. So how did you look at it from a P&L perspective, or was that even part of the equation? Like, can you put a price to this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked. And honestly, this is the one benefit of being the CEO. I was so committed to it that I was willing to spend what it needed to test this thing out. We had been successful. It did take a tremendous amount of money and resources to get this thing moving. But I wasn't looking at the P&L right in the beginning. I was looking about how much was I spending, and it's a slow burn, and you're not sure if you're going to get there. But this is where an entrepreneur has to take a risk, and you have to say, you know what, I want this. I think this is important, and I believe that this is what's going to take us to the next level. So I had to make a bet that I was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
From that point, and realistically, it was a lot smaller earlier on. It's much bigger now, but now we have KPIs, so now it's easy. But with that first step, it was difficult. So it was like, about how much do you think we're going to spend? I'm like, okay, we can afford that. It just comes off of our profits. We're just going to invest in that because we have to have a strategy on how we're going to help the people at our company. We got to invest in that. We're investing in equipment every day. We're buying a machine. We're buying a building. We're trucks and vehicles and things of that sort. Well, we need to invest in this other thing. So it was a big expense, one that everyone looked at me and said I was crazy. And but I was really committed to it. And just like a machine, if you say, I think this machine can really help us into the future, every single one of us, especially the engineer minds, are going to say, we're going to spend that money.
Mhm.
Well, this is the same thing. Just think of it as a machine.
Yeah.
I'm spending this money on this, fabrication. Like we have, computer fabrication items and are super expensive, but we spend for that. Why can't we spend for it?
And kind of continuing on that analogy, what comes to my mind is like, a truck, say a work truck, for example. Are you going to drive it 200,000 miles and not stop for an oil change or not do a tune up or not change? You know what I mean? But we
Right.
don't think twice about spending money on consumable resources. But when it comes to people who are our most important asset, a lot of people, it's an afterthought. So,
It
and
is.
I've
I'm
seen,
glad you recognize that.
and I've seen studies. I don't know if anything's been specific to construction, but I think something needs to be done. Is specific studies on the ROI, if that's what you want to call it. And I hate putting on my financial hat and looking at it as a business case, but I've talked to a lot of people, and I don't think anybody will disagree that focusing on mental wellness and psychological safety, it's a moral obligation, right? You got to be good to people. But that doesn't always win people over. You got to show them where it's hitting their pocketbooks, unfortunately. So, but I've seen studies where for every dollar invested in mental health, you get $5 back. And that wasn't specific to construction, but I don't know if that's similar to
Yes.
stuff you've seen or.
No, it's not even, look, that's the thing I want everyone who's in construction to understand. We are just like every other company. We're Google, we're just like every other company. We, especially us, when we rely so much on our people, there is no robot that can do what we do as of today,
Mhm.
everything we do. So I do believe that you have to sometimes understand that there is an ROI. I have a belief that humanity is the most important thing we can be. We can be better humans is the best way to be the best CEO. But I also believe if you need to be able to have something, this is a for-profit business, you have to see that there is value that can create an ROI. I didn't know it, so to speak. I just believed in it because I knew that the people were that important.
Mhm.
Because guess what? Guess who I thought was really important? If I really thought I was important, and when I was in pain and when I was suffering and I needed to take care of myself, then how do I not know? Then how can I, as a CEO, not be understanding and respectful of the people who give most of their day
Mhm.
to my company? Yeah, they get paid for it, but we can do more. We can do more. Just like you said with that truck. You can keep it up. You can put oil in it. You can change it. You can keep it clean. You can change the filters. You can do all those things while you're running that truck. So it's the same mindset that I had. And I can
Yeah.
prove to, our growth has been exponential since we really dove
Well,
into that.
that's amazing. Amazing to hear. I think, largely, uh, mental health and psychological safety, all this stuff. Yep. The world is largely in an awareness phase. I think a lot of people, we're talking about it now, we're having conversations and kind of breaking down the stigma. But a lot of people don't know what to do with that kind of information, right? So I think right now it's like we've acknowledged the elephant in the room. We know it's an issue, and people are struggling a little bit. Like we're not taught how to deal with people who are in crisis or situations like grief and different life events. And what I've learned is that um, you don't have to be a psychologist or psychiatrist to just be there with somebody and help them through something. B, yes, we'll get into some numbers in a second, but a lot of issues that cause things like substance misuse and suicidal ideation aren't specifically caused by the construction industry. I think typically a lot of people who get into the trades, especially, come from a background and they're more predisposed to experience those things. And a lot of those issues re- reside outside of the industry, but that doesn't absolve us as the responsibility as leaders to help our people. A, because you want them to just be good because it's honoring your neighbor and being a good human. But B, it's a strategic advantage, right? Because when people are coming to work and they're struggling with something, their productivity is going to be down. They're going to be more at risk to get hurt. It's going to rub off on the team. There's absenteeism, presenteeism, all these other isms. So to me, it's a no-brainer to invest in this stuff, Ed. But what are some things that people aren't seeing? Like, why isn't this more common, do you think? What are the challenges in the industry?
I think, Angelo, you said it really well. I think one of the challenges is accepting the fact that the old way of doing construction, when we had many immigrants who were just happy to be in America, for example, where I'm at, where they were just so happy to be able to give a better life for their family, they sacrificed themselves for the next generation. My grandfather from Ireland, he sacrificed a lot for me to get here. But we have to realize that those days have left.
Mm-hmm.
And now you need to have strategies on how to deal with your human beings. And life is one of those things that all of us have to go through. And the trials and tribulations of life are going to impact your ability at work.
Mm-hmm.
You can make two choices as an owner. You can avoid them and try to just keep hiring more people thinking that you will run away from whatever situations are there. Or you can accept the fact that this is a societal issue that we need to dive in and see if we can come up with some solutions. And those solutions are going to make the relationship with that individual better between the two of us. And in addition to that, they're going to be more productive. And even more importantly, hopefully, they will go home and they will be happy with their life. They will be better mothers and fathers, better brothers and sisters, and just create a different environment. And if you can be part of that, why would you not want that as the CEO of a construction company?
When you put it that way, you can't argue with it, right? So let's talk about that for a minute, because what you're describing essentially is building a culture, right? Culture of care, where you as a leader care about your people, but your people also care about each other, and that's the feeling that they get when they go to work, and the feeling that they take home to their families. I've worked in some really good places. I've also worked in some really toxic places, and my wife could probably tell you better than me the impact it had on me, because typically your spouse or the person closest to you knows you better than yourself. So what does that culture piece look like to you? How do you go about building that where people want to come to work and want to care? Because I think a lot of people, maybe it's because they're used to being treated as a disposable resource, especially on big projects. But a lot of people I talk to don't have that feeling when they go to work.
It takes it. What I will say is, it takes nurturing. It takes time. It takes commitment. So, for us, it was our field force felt like a tool. They said, you'll just switch me out for another tool and you'll move on. And they don't trust you because they come from communities, as you said earlier, where when they trusted, they got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to trust. And I think it just takes a lot of effort and time to keep proving to them. It's like safety. I always use safety as you can't talk safety.
Mm-hmm.
You have to walk safety at all times. If any moment you let someone be unsafe for a profit, at any moment, you will lose your integrity on safety. Well, making them feel like you care is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that every day? And what is your strategy to make sure that you let them feel that, yes, there's a transactional part of our relationship. You ask for a certain amount of pay. This is here's the expectation of it. Yes, we know those are the rules. If you go way below those rules or you can perform way higher, you're either going to leave us or we're going to say it's time for you to move to a different organization. but the people that that's what you're going to really dive into,
Mhm.
and you're going to give them as many opportunities to learn about how their brain works and how they can conflict manage and how they can deal with their own emotional intelligence, because people come in with all kinds of different feelings.
Mhm.
We can't control how someone was brought up, what community they're going back into.
Right.
All we can do is give them the community that we have, the culture community that we have, that says, if you're hurting, if you're in a bad way, we want to help you. No stigma. Tell us what's going on and let us see if we can be of value for you.
Mhm. No, there's a lot of power in that statement, because this has come up before on past shows, and when it comes about culture, and especially this culture of care, where it's not typical in construction, at least in the old school construction, but it just takes consistent, intentional effort. Because the second, like you said, people come in jaded, so the second you kind of hint that you're just like the old guys, and you're going to lose them. And if you're not intentional about the culture, it's going to come back to quarterly profits and all this stuff, because that's what business defaults to, right? But it's focusing on that human element.
It does. It does. I mean, Angelo, one of the things that you can do simply, and we have a program, we and it was by one of our field people. In college football in this country, they put a little, if you make a great play, they put like a sticker on your helmet. You
Mhm.
know, So we came up with, and one of our field workers recommended it because we have meetings, and we included in our culture meetings our field, because we needed to know. Look, I can speak from where I'm sitting, but let me hear from the people who are actually playing in the field. And they're going to tell you what they need and what they have. And one of the things that they really want is an acknowledgement
Mhm.
of when they do good. And good doesn't have to be an amazing job, just having a good attitude, smile, laugh, and enjoy life. Just being willing to go an extra yard, or they saw something on TV and they said, I brought this tool and I thought it might help us. And just a way for us to think positively towards them and reward them with attaboys, not like massive amounts of money. Just all human beings want to feel good if someone says thanks.
Yeah.
Something
Oh,
simple as that.
for sure. And
For sure.
it goes beyond a pat on the back. I think it's like you said, it's at the core of being human. You want to be seen, you want to be validated, you want somebody to reaffirm that, you did a good job and you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, right? I think there's basic human needs. That's one of them. And part and parcel of it, I think, is contributing to something that's bigger than themselves. And that's why I think there's a lot of opportunity in the construction industry, and a lot of room for improvement. Is, you look at what we do. We're not just putting a bunch of steel and concrete together and some cladding and calling it a day. You're building something. You're shaping a community. You're shaping the future of the world. Tell me if I'm sounding too cheesy here, Ed. But
No way.
I think if more people looked at this way, instead of just putting down blocks of mason, or pouring yards of concrete, like, we would be a lot better off when we started treating people with the pride and honor that they deserve.
Yeah, Angelo, look, I think you bring up a point that I do like speaking about. We're $1 trillion business. We're an important part of every economy in the entire world. We have some of the most skilled craftsmen and women coming to this industry. We need to keep evolving, though.
Hmm.
And we can't do it like we did it before, because we didn't ride our horse to work today. Evolution of everything is important, and how we deal with our people is really, we're at a point in our industry where we need to invite more people into the industry and see it as a place where they can have a tremendous amount of growth. And one of the things that young people today are looking for is, how are you going to treat the whole me?
Hmm.
They're smart, but they're also looking for, can you care for me differently? And I can say, and I think there's a lot of people, and you sound like you're similar, in our industry that we need to get out there to say we are looking to build a people first place that happens to do construction. Whether we do construction, whether we're the Greek restaurant, it doesn't make a difference. It's the same. What we do is is different from other industry. But the part that I love about our industry is we take all shapes and sizes,
Mhm.
education level, skill level. We take everyone and we have such an opportunity to put them in a place that will fit for them. Not everybody's meant to be, 100 feet in the air on a swing. Not everybody is meant to be, carrying heavy bags of cement. But just like the world, there's many other opportunities in our industry. And I get excited when I think of communities that suffer and say, we're open, come in, and
Yeah.
we're gonna help you.
In that sense, I think, and I've said this before too, construction has a bit of a marketing issue. I think it's getting better now. There's a lot of industry effort and government support, and there's big neon signs saying, come into the industry. But to your point, I think what we're seeing, and this is a result of some pretty lackluster retention rates, is that, yeah, people realize that there's this labor shortage and we need people in the industry, but largely the culture across the board hasn't evolved to kind of the rest of the world. So I think there's a bit of a friction when younger generations are coming in to the way the industry is structured right now, and they're not getting the expectations that you just mentioned. Because I know, like, I've got younger kids too, not in the workforce yet, but they're taught differently, they're wired differently, their lifestyle is different, and it's not just about a paycheck, it's about purpose. And I think that's what we have to provide for younger people. So maybe we can speak on that a little bit, because you talked about,
Sure.
evolving. And so what are you seeing in the different type of leadership that younger generations need coming into the industry now?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, younger people are looking for what is the purpose, and they want a purpose, and they want a good purpose, and they want one that's bigger than themselves. They're different. They're not just looking for the paycheck, but they are. I mean, everyone's got to pay for bills,
Mhm.
and they need their own needs. But I think they want to know that you're looking at them as a complete person, and what is the purpose, and what are we trying to build? And I personally don't believe EDA is about what we do. It's about who we are. And I think that's what retains people. That's what attracts people. And that's what young people want to feel like. They're not okay with just giving me a job and then us saying, well, we give you a paycheck. What else do you want? They want more. And you go, well, I don't want to give them more. Well, then you're going to lose to people like Angelo and myself because we are. And I'm going to compete by providing an experience so I can get the best young minds to come into my firm. We do have a marketing issue where the construction industry is seen as closed. It seems as heavily male dominated. We need minorities, we need women, and we don't need them just because a quota. We need them because they are a tremendous amount of talent
Mhm.
that is sitting out there that we need to tap, and they need to see the value of coming in. So young people are demanding it. We were fortunate enough to start giving it, and because we felt so much power coming back towards us, we're just we're just continually dumping more into it. So, and it's going to take you to think a little bit differently. But you know what's going to take us to think like we are builders, but at the end of the day, people are are our biggest asset, and we talk about it all the time.
Mhm.
And what are you doing? And we're going to get into the mental health and some of the things that relate to that. And that is the reality of the world. So
Yeah.
what are you going to close your eyes and hope it's not there? Would you
Yeah.
do the same for your children? No,
Exactly. Yeah.
no.
So one thing, so this comes up a lot too when I talk to people on site. You start chatting. What do you do here? Oh, I'm just a plumber. Oh, I'm just an electrician. It's like, why do you have to say just, buddy? Like, just be proud of it. And I think it's a societal thing. There's still a stigma about working in the trades, even though it's getting better. And a lot of people now are choosing that path, whereas before they might have been forced into it because they were pushed into the schooling system or whatever reason. Not everybody, but a lot of people. So it's nice to see that that's changing and it's slow and steady. But I think, the change is coming upon us, right? It's being forced on us by the younger generation. The rest of the world has evolved. There's a labor shortage coming up, if not already here. And we need to change. So what I tell leaders is you can try and get ahead of it and be proactive, get ahead of it, or you can be forced into the change and you have less options on the latter end. So, but again, change management, it comes down to getting outside your comfort zone, right? I think that's what stops a lot of people from thinking outside the box because it's scary, it's unknown, what's going to happen, I don't have control. But just letting go and being curious and focusing on people, like you said. I've heard other leaders say, you get the right people in the right spots and give them the tools they need, you'd be amazed how fast the job gets done.
I'm not worried. If you get the right people, you're always going to be that way. And we've been a little lazy in our industry. A lot of immigrants, second generation, our kids just would come into it. And we really didn't do a good enough job saying, this isn't the place for the last chance. Like you have nothing else and you're going to come into construction. We want you to look at us on equal with Google and say, you know what? Because I think the people in construction by far are good down to earth people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you would enjoy the simplicity of being with people who aren't afraid to, get dirty, but at the same time are really smart. Some of the smartest people I have here have tattoos on their neck. They may not speak the perfect English, but man, you put them in a room with someone who's real book smart, and you're talking about what we're building, man, it is not even a contest.
Yeah.
And I look at it as we need to do a better job of attracting those people. And one of the ways is by saying that we have to have a strategy on how to give a better experience for the human beings that are going to come in our industry.
Mm-hmm. So we've alluded to it a couple times here, like the human experience, right? In life, things happen, right? It doesn't always go according to plan. A lot of people don't necessarily know how to cope with that stress, so they'll resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms, whether it's substance misuse or gambling or different vices. So just some stats here. So in construction, I saw a study there was 12% of construction workers have an alcohol use disorder, nearly double the national average. Similar percentage report illicit drug use. Opioid use disorder in construction is nearly twice the national rate. We lose roughly 7,000 workers a year to suicide and more than 10,000 to drug overdose. Those are some pretty heavy numbers. So I'd love to get your commentary on that and specifically too on how you've dealt with them, because I did some research and I saw that you've got a PACT program, personal accountability changes today. So that's something most companies don't do, right? Because from what I understand, it guarantees employees their job after they complete treatment. So in this industry where a lot of people are hesitant to come out about their issues or stuff that they're dealing with because they're afraid of it's going to impact their stability, what people think about them, that's a pretty unique take on it. So can you tell me a little bit where that came from?
Sure. As usual in life, you learn sometimes from situational things that happen and you're making a decision what to do. And the reason I say that is you had stats out there. And I'm embarrassed to be part of the situation where I kind of knew that was happening, and you just would take a person and you would say, well, they're not reliable. They're drinking too much or they're in a bit. Let's just go get somebody else. And we had a moment where we had a situation that it was so big that we had to make a choice at this point. And it was like, we can ignore this problem or we can do what I think I'm good at is let's dive into it. Let's find a way to help the construction workers. Because the other thing that they are 5 times more likely to die by suicide than they are by death on the site. Mm-hmm. That is frightening. That is an epidemic as far as I'm concerned. And we have to do more. So partly is we have to talk to them more and have something for them. But what happened in my organization, I go back to the people, an individual raised his hand and said, are you serious about helping the construction community? I came from a place where I was in jail, or I had my own substance issues and I'm clean and I want to help more people. And I get a little bit choked up thinking about it because it was just it was such a great thing for him to say. It was a man, but it was also like a great opportunity. I have this platform as a CEO to say, how can we create something? And people were like, don't do it. What are you going to invite them in? You go, well, wait a minute. They're out there.
Mm.
And I want to be able to say to them, if you identify that you are struggling, we will guarantee, because I asked this gentleman, why don't people come forward sooner? Because they think they'll never get to work again.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, how about if we take that off the table? If they say it, we will put them in our program. They have to go through an intense program. Don't misunderstand me, but we won't. But not only will we not stigmatize them, we will guarantee them back.
Hmm.
Now, if you get caught, let's say you are in a situation where you have an issue, we're still going to take care of you. We're going to get you help. We're not going to let you back until you're better, healthy. No different. And I say this, Angelo, it's really important to me. This is how I equate it in my head. If they stood up and said, I have cancer, what would I do? Well, this is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get some help. You're not healthy right now. And then, they'll come back, and then we will do everything we can to put them in. I can tell you, you have to have a strategy on how to deal with your humans. Humanity has a strategy. And what it did for us, and it's hard, and a lot of people still don't come, but we have a couple people, we have a couple success stories that make me cry. We have some horror stories where people didn't take our advice and they left us and they perished.
Hmm.
And if we can, and our goal is to save one person. So if we can leave this EDA PACT program, and we've already done it so far, and we say one person's life was changed because of it, how the hell can a CEO of any organization not want to invest time and money in that?
Yeah. No, you touched on it there too, and I just kind of want to sit for it with a moment, is the stigma around mental health, right? Substance misuse, all this stuff. It's a mental health issue, and largely it's no different than a physical injury. Like you said, it's no different than breaking your arm. It's no different than catching a cold. It's an illness. It's a sickness, and you can get better if you put the time in. Why people look at mental stuff differently, I think it may be a societal thing, bit of a cultural thing, but it's essentially the same thing. So there's a lot of power in that, and I think what we're dealing with in construction is people are double stigmatized because they're working in construction. So there's already the stigma of, oh, you couldn't do anything in life, so you ended up working in construction. And then you have mental illness within that stigmatized, marginalized community. So it's no wonder that, a lot of these people are suffering. And I know lots of them, right? So.
And I think, and the other thing that Angelo, that our industry is very, we have many, is males. And the male societal person has to be something that it is not real, that they have to be infallible, they have to be stronger than everybody else. Mental health attacks all individuals, male, female, large, small, skinny, built, it doesn't matter. And addiction and alcoholism and things like that, they all stem from one thing: mental health and the feeling of how they feel about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if we as a society and as businesses who take money from the community in profits don't feel like we have to give back a little bit to the community and say, we want to help you, then you're mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not only the right thing to do, it's also the best thing for your organization. Because this EDA PACT program, we have an EDA PACT event once a year, and the amount of people that come out and the joy and crying and love that people have for the organization, because all it did was say, we want to help you. That's all we did. We didn't, are we taking a risk? I think it's a minor risk, like minor on beyond minor, because it's either that or we ignore it. And that's not okay, just ignoring it. It's my community that I'm living in.
Yeah.
need us, we're going to be there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at it from the lens of limiting liability. They're like, you know what, not my issue. I'm not going to get involved. Something might happen. And there's a cost involved to it. Yeah, there's a cost, but what's the cost of not doing something, Ed? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
how much money are we burning? And not even monetary value. Like, how do you put the value to somebody's human, A, life, but B, happiness, right? Like, quality of
You,
life. You can't put a
you,
price to that.
you can't. And what I get back, so let me tell you the other thing. What I get back from a program like that is 1,000 times more powerful than any dollar and cents that I can get in anything I do. The amount of appreciation, the amount of care that people have, and the fact that they see you as a good part of the community. You're not just here just to take money. You're here to be a profitable company. You're going to hold people accountable, but you're also going to care for the vulnerable in your community. These are vulnerable men, generally a lot of men,
Hmm.
who need some help. And it's hard for them to say, I'm in pain and I need help. And if we don't accept the fact that by just, and a lot of times we just have to keep saying it, it's hard still. This community, we've been on this probably for 5 years, maybe. It took us a little bit to get it up and running. It's still hard to get people to be open with it, but the more people we can get into the program, the better it's going to be, so the stigma can get taken down, because we have no stigma. If anything, we're more proud of you if you do it. And I'll tell you what, the people that come in who get help and get better, they are amazing. And if they leave EDA and they're healthy, I am happy,
Yeah.
because I want them to be healthy.
No, that's amazing. So let's address the skeptics for a minute here, because there might be people
Sure.
listening, and there's definitely some people I know who, when this topic comes up, they're like, I don't know, that doesn't feels warm and fuzzy, but like, suck it up, be a man, keep going. Like, life's hard. Who gives a shit? What do you say to people like that?
I say, look, honestly, a lot of people do say that to me.
Hmm.
And they say, why would you dive into that? It's not your responsibility to worry about what they do after they leave work. Okay, let's go with that. Okay. But they come here for 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't do anything to help them, I'm not, we have resources for them to go get help on their own, but we also want to create an environment where we teach them how to breathe. Every meeting we have, you have to breathe for 30 to 60 seconds at our meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we want to teach them that you need to slow your brain down. It's going to help you. It's going to make your brain a little healthier. So we're going to do that. We're going to deal with conflict management, emotional intelligence. We're going to tell them that yelling is not okay. Being triggered is not okay. We're going to tell them that's not the way we're going to lead here at EDA. You're going to lead so you're not so jacked up and your heart rate is flying that by the time you get home, you need something to bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to get it to the point where you learn how to healthfully bring yourself down before you open that door to say, I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
So people who say it's warm and fuzzy, no, this is really hard. You just don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the most important work, because you're not going to get anybody who cares about you like you can if you care about them. I mean, that doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. The more you care about something, the more they're going to care back. And it doesn't mean that we get into their personal lives. We don't tell them what to do. We're not policing that. We're just saying that if we can give you some tools that help you manage your life, you're going to be a better employee of EDAs.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. It's like a couple things in how I address those types of people is, one, the goal isn't to solve people's problems. It's to help them get to the solution on their own. Because I've been in some tough spots in my life, and it took me a long time to realize it, but nobody's going to come in on a white horse and save the day. But people are going to be there to help you if you reach out for support. There's numbers you can call and programs you can, and friends and family that are going to be there to support you. So anybody going through a tough time, like, there is hope. The other piece is, I found, because I do a lot of social media stuff, right? So I always love putting out posts like this, talking about emotional intelligence and stigma and all that. Because in the beginning it bothered me, but now it just further validates my point. When I post something about that, I get a lot of negative comments, Ed, like a lot of negative comments, like literally people attacking me. I can send you a screenshot. Somebody was so mad, they came back 3 different times to keep telling me how big of a pussy I was and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I found
Yeah.
the level that those people need help is proportional to the amount of aggression that they express in those reactions. And somebody asked me once, is like, well, what if you came up to somebody like that on a job site? And I said, kind of half facetiously, I said, I'd grab him and I'd give him a big hug. Because, it's my favorite movie, and I've said this a bunch of times, Good Will Hunting. You know Good Will Hunting?
Oh, come on.
My favorite movie. The
Come on.
scene where Robin Williams and Matt Damon are in the office, and Robin Williams says, it's not your fault. And he goes, yeah. He goes, well, it's not your fault. And they just need that moment. They need to come to that realization that they have some unprocessed trauma or something happened to them, or a sequence of things happened to them. And it's okay. It's okay. But you don't have to carry that around, because it's like, I feel people in that situation, they're carrying this big fucking load. Like they're carrying this huge weight
Yeah.
on their backs and their chests, and they're taking it on the rest of the world. But if they took a moment, like you said, for some introspection and learn self-awareness, it could go miles. So for you providing that venue and helping people, kudos to you. Like, it's amazing. Sorry, I went on a rant there. I don't know if
No. I love your rant. Look, first of all, anything with Good Will Hunting, I love that scene. And one of my favorite scenes is the best friend scene of all time for me is Ben Affleck is at their done construction. They're sitting at their truck. They're having a beer. And he's saying, Matt Damon's character's like, hey, I'm going to get a family. We're going to work here. We're going to live in Southie. And he says, if you're at that thing, I am going to, I don't know if he says I'm going to kill you, but that's a friend saying, I love you so much that I want you to go do something different. And I may be stuck here, but you can get out. And your rant is it's really about men not seeing themselves as having to have the answers for everything and not always being vulnerable. I think most of the people that went after you don't like the fact that you have to be vulnerable. And when being vulnerable is so much harder. That's why that Robin Williams, Matt Damon scene is so hard for them to put the guard down. But the power is by putting the guard down.
Yeah.
But societally, especially even today, there's a meanness and a behavior that is being rewarded, and that's not it. I'm more of a man when I cry than if I don't cry. And I say that because part of the leadership at EDA is to tell my staff, I am imperfect. I am vulnerable. I don't have the answers for everything. I need you. And does that me give up my power? I give up no power. If anything, they respect that more than me trying to fake it.
Yeah. I think there's probably some eloquent quote on this, but I think the most powerful display is relinquishing your power in that sense, and just being open and just being human with people. So you're obviously pretty far down this journey. You've done a lot of work, you've done a lot of thinking, you've taken a lot of steps. I think there's a lot of people listening now out in the industry who are just at the beginning, right? They've realized that this is an issue, they got to do something about it. And they want to do something, but they don't know. So like, what are 1 or 2 things that you can, like, where was the starting point from? I mean, you've learned a lot along the way. So maybe, what step 1 or 2 of that journey?
I think the biggest step is find people who have done it. I did it through books. Part of why I do this podcast and speak about it, and I think you would be a perfect example, is speak to people who have been on the journey already. I didn't build this by myself. I listened to other companies. I read about different companies, and how can I put that same concept into my own business? So what I would say to someone is, first, get inside yourself and say, I'm doing this. And know that if I can be your example, I'm telling you, you can do it. And I didn't graduate from Harvard. I'm not some genius. All I was a person who said, I need to do something to help my organization. I need to come up with strategies to give my humans a better experience. And if you go through that journey, you're smart enough to figure it out. And there's enough resources out there for you to build it your own. I can't tell you exactly what to do,
Mhm.
but I would recommend that you read, look for some people from a consulting and coaching standpoint that could come in and help you build it, because you may not have that. But the thing that I can't express even more is your head and your heart have to be in it.
Mhm.
And if your head and heart are in it, I promise you, you will find a way to do this. This is, again, this is not rocket science. It's just fear of going down a path that you have to stay on. I can get called out so fast if I don't do this. And here's the thing I want to make sure that your audience knows. We hold people accountable here from the job. So we're not here to say that this is like you come in, you don't do the job, and we're just going to help you. No, you got to do the job, and we're going to care for you as a human being, and you're going to care for us. We're going to do both. But if you don't do one, there's other companies that you can work for. But when it comes to human beings, how we treat you as a human, oh, that's universal. The
Yeah.
difference is the pay and the job come with the transactional part. If you can't match that, you're going to have to maybe go somewhere else. But treating you as a human, once you walk in the door and you're an EDA employee, we're going to treat every single employee, no matter what role they're in, what status they are. We're going to treat you as a human being first, not your title. Your title is with your pay and your just what you have to do. That's a different accountability model.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of what we've been talking about and circling around trust, right? I think that's the foundational part. I think there's a lot of mistrust in the industry now between employers and employees, between subcontractors and contractors and owners and GCs. It's like at some point something happened and people just think they're out to screw you. And so the walls are up and you got the boxing gloves on. I don't think it has to be that way. Because like construction is super technical, it's transactional, and there's a lot of contracts and design build and all this type of stuff. But to me, you can't put all those complexities and technicalities on a brittle foundation. And that foundation is trust. You have to trust the person that you're standing beside you, whether you're working on site or sitting across in an office, before you can layer on this other stuff, or else it's kind of pointless. No, am I making any sense? You know what I mean?
A lot of sense. And think about the people, the men and women that are out in the field. They're putting bolts in the building, they're putting things in the building. And the more we can trust them, the more they trust us and we trust them. How do you think they're going to build something safer that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because policing your way through a construction site is not possible. There's a billion pieces to the site. So the reality of it is you're not going to be able to do that. So what you can do though is if each organization builds a relationship with their people that is a trusting relationship, then the relationship between me, the subcontractor, and the general contractor, I hope they start to feel it. And then they say, we want to trust them, because not do we just trust Ed or Angelo, we trust the people at EDA,
Mm-hmm.
because they as an organization are trustworthy. And that's one of our core values, build trust. And you don't give trust, you don't take trust, you build trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes time and that takes an effort. And our field staff, especially, it takes us a little bit for them to really trust what we're doing. But you know what? Every day you get an opportunity to build that trust every day. So
Yeah.
every moment that you have, you're building some opportunity for that trust to get better. And we do as an organization, not an organization, as an industry, there is like, it's the worst meme or worst video of all time is the boat, and then the change order is 4 times the size of the boat.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that is exactly that's what we're trying to fight against. It's not the truth. The best relationships we have at EDA are with the people who trust us. And the best relationship we have with them is when we trust them. And you know what? Trusting someone is so much easier than not trusting. The energy level it takes to trust someone versus untrust, it's just like, again, we need more energy, and the energy shouldn't be that.
Yeah. No, you're right, because that energy can be used in a positive way somewhere else. And
We could
everybody has a
solve
limited
a
amount.
mental element. We can deal with charities. We do we have an EDA Cares program. One of the best parts about construction workers that I've seen is we do a lot of charity work, not with money. We take the in-kind work. No one who does our charity work doesn't get paid for it. So they get to feel good by going out and helping Make-A-Wish or helping a woman's center or helping all these little things. And though that's another way for you to create a strategy for your human beings to feel good about themselves. They can go home that day and say, I did good. I might not be able to give money to a charity, but I'm able to take my skills and go help someone. And that's good. That makes them feel good. Maybe then
Mhm.
they'll help their mental health and they'll start to feel, you know what, there's nothing wrong with them to say, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I think we can do that.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about these topics because it's not rocket science, right? You don't need a PhD or a master's degree to understand this stuff and probably think back to events in your life where you had those feelings. And it's simple, but it's not easy, I think, because it's not mainstream, it's not how people were kind of trained to think. So just kind of coming down for a landing here, we got a couple questions I just like to ask
Right.
everybody. So, I mean, you've been doing this a long time. You've obviously done so many amazing things and helped so many people. Uh, what are you most proud of? And it could be a personal, it could be a professional thing. Like when you look back on your career and your life up to date, what's one thing where you're like, yeah, that's the proudest thing for me.
Look, I've said this before at my company, and the proudest thing I think I have in life is we've been able to have this incredible business. But more importantly, with that business, I'm married to the same person. I have a great relationship with my three children. They're older now. I have grandchildren. And you want to do both. And there's no success in life that doesn't come with a relationship. And that goes to what we're talking about as a strategy. You have to have a strategy to keep your wife and you together. You have to have a strategy to make sure your relationship with your children is healthy. It's not
Mhm.
perfect, nothing is perfect in life, but I am so proud that after all this time, through a lot of trials and tribulations, I still have my family, and I'm very proud of that. And it took work from my wife, it took work from my kids to understand who I was, and it took work from me to try to balance that whole thing. And I'm not saying I was perfect all the time, but at the end of the day, I think that makes me, when I look back, any success I had would not be successful if I didn't have, any business success that I had would not be the same if I had lost part of my family. If they weren't part of my life.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I've heard so many people say similar things in different ways. Like there's people at one end of the spectrum who went scorched earth and they burned every bridge, but they got all the money, they got the title, they got the fancy cars, and then they realized there was nobody there to celebrate with. So it was kind of pointless, right?
Pointless.
And I think
I think that's exactly it.
so and I've heard lots of people say, in life it comes down to meaningful work's important, right? You have to contribute, you have to do stuff you're passionate about, but it's meaningful relationships. It's having people who love and support you through that. And but maybe it's because I'm just warm and fuzzy too, like that. So
Man.
so you've been doing this a long time. It's been 25
Yeah.
years out on your own. What do you know now about leading people that you wish you knew in 99 when you first
Right.
opened up shop?
Oh man. Look, every person should have a growth mindset. So whatever you learned today, yesterday, you should know more about today. So who I was in 99 is not who I am now. And the thing I'm proud of is the fact that I've grown. I've gotten so much better. I wish I could have had this kind of education, but the reality is I don't think I would have if I didn't go through it.
Hmm.
So I wish I knew more about myself and the people and how to build a different environment for them. I wasn't a mean person. I think I was a good person. But man, once I dove into how to create a different experience for the people who work here and really dive into it, man, the joy level for me just goes up. It's exponential. It's limitless.
Hmm.
So money comes and goes, and you can have too much. You have little. It's an endless circle. But man, when you get to have this strategy for human beings, you are on an ever. There's so much excitement to me as we continue to grow, and they say, why do you want to continue to grow? Because I want people in this arena to experience some of the great things we're doing, and we're only going to get better. So I can't be the person I was back in 99, and I wish I could go back, but maybe that was part of the whole journey. And I want to be able to know sooner, get to know your people, dive into your people, come up with solutions to make their life better. And trust me when I tell you, they will pay you back 10 times over.
Amazing. I'm getting tingles now, Ed. I don't know.
Well,
So
how can the great
So how can people learn more about EDA? How can they reach out, connect, or learn more, get involved in maybe some of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, look, go on our LinkedIn page. I post a lot of writings. I post a lot of stuff about EDA and what we're doing. You can always go to our website, edacontractor.com or edacontractors.com. We put a lot of thought leadership stuff out there, not because we think we're doing it perfect. We just would like to express what we're doing. We see success and we'd like other people to copy it and take it in, and they're going to make it their own. Nothing we're doing here is so unique that someone else can't do it. So if you ever need to know, if you want to DM me on, LinkedIn or get in touch, I am more than happy to provide my own insights. I can't say that I don't have the exact ingredients, but I will tell you one thing. If you have a strategy for the human beings, I guarantee you will be successful.
Very powerful words. I really appreciate you coming on, and that's why I like having these conversations. I think amplifying these voices and these messages is what the industry needs, to let other people know that they're not the only ones thinking like this, because it's amazing how many people I've met on this journey.
No, and your platform's great, and keep doing what you're doing, because we don't market ourselves. I think there's a lot of people like yourself and myself where they think the right way. We just, sometimes the loudmouths drown out this. The more we amplify this messaging, I think in every single place in the world, there's people who think this way. And we want people out there to don't settle to work for a place in construction that doesn't give you this experience because they're out there.
No, awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, Ed. This has been a really good conversation, and I just really appreciate you and everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Human Side of Construction podcast. If you have a similar story, or you would like to get your message out there and talk about how you're addressing these industry challenges, please reach out. I would love to chat and see how we can work together. Thanks. Take care.